Hi, Adriana here. Today's project we're going to be looking at making a circle. So we'll be working in the round. We'll need to do slip stitch, chain, double crochets, and we're going to look at joining because we're going to end up making a little rainbow. So I'll also show you how to make these tassels. So the circle can be used as a coaster, so you could pop your cup on it. You can make face scrubbies, so you've got little face wipes. And as I said, we're actually going to fold our circle in half and end up making a rainbow. So you could have this as a hanging thing, and you can maybe give it as a gift. Just something to brighten up someone's day. Okay, so we're going to start. I did this one in an 8-ply using a 4mm hook, but I thought it would be easier to show you using this chunky yarn. So I'm going to be using a 9mm hook and some of this chunky yarn that I had. This is actually a Moda Vera monkey that you can get at Spotlight, or you can just use any scraps that you happen to have around. So I'm not going in the order of a rainbow because I'm working with some little scraps of yarn along the way. So to start with, we are going to do our slip stitch, which we learnt a couple of weeks ago, and I'm going to make 2 chains. So I'm going to show you a couple of different techniques that I find are quite handy. So I'm working 2 chains. Now I'm going to work into this first chain. So we did that when we made the hearts last weekend. So I'm going to do 6 double crochets. So this is the Australian or UK terminology. So I'm going to go through that loop, hook up my yarn. I've got 2 loops on the hook, yarn over and pull through 2. So that is a UK double crochet. In America that would be called a single crochet, but we're working in UK terms today. So I'm going to do 6 of these. So back through that same loop again, hook up my yarn, 2 loops on the hook, yarn over, pull through 2. So we'll repeat that. This is my 3rd one. Going into that same loop again, pulling up my loop, 2 loops on the hook, yarn over, pull through 2. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 and 6. So if I want to just check, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, now I'm going to join those with a slip stitch. So slip stitch, we're going through those 2 loops of our first stitch, pick up the loop, and this time we're going to pull through everything. Okay, so that's our slip stitch. Okay, so that's formed that first circle. Now because I'm going to be joining colours in, there's 2 ways of doing it. I could snip the yarn off and fasten off there and continue on, but I tend to not be bothered doing that. So I'm going to undo my slip stitch, pop my hook through where I want to do the slip stitch, snip my yarn, and I'm going to introduce my next colour. So my next colour is going to be this lovely hot pink. So this is a method of joining when you're changing colours that keeps it nice and smooth. So I'm going to pick up my pink yarn. I'm going to do my slip stitch by pulling through those 2, And see, I've brought the new colour in without actually having to fasten off. Now, this is another little technique I'm going to show you, is just carrying those colours across that end of the yarn across behind, because something I hate doing is to have to, weave in all the ends. So we're going to weave as we go. So this is something that's quite handy. So our second row, we're going to start with a chain, and then we're going to work into our next stitch. So I'm going to go through under those 2 loops of the stitch. Now I'm going to pull up this yarn, but what I want to do is to catch that yarn in between. So this is just weaving across. So I'm hooking up my yarn. I'm going to pull that in under everything. So I've got my 2 loops on the hook, and I've got those carried across in behind. Okay, so that's just carrying that across. So I'm going to go yarn under, pull through those 2 loops. Now this row, I want to do 2 double crochets into each double crochet of the previous row. So I'm going to do another one there. So through that same loop, coming under my bits I'm carrying across, hooking up my yarn to pull through, and going over the yarn I'm carrying across, hook that up, pull through 2. Okay, so I've done my 2 double crochets into that double crochet of the first row. So I'm going to repeat that. So I'm coming over to this next stitch, carrying these scrappy bits of yarn across and weaving them in. So going through, hooking up my yarn, pulling that through, just pull those end bits down, yarn over, pull through. So another one into that same stitch, going through, pulling up, yarn over, pull through. So onto my next one, I'm going to do another 2 double crochets into this next stitch, still weaving those ends. So picking up my pink yarn, tucking my ends down, yarn over, pull through, again going through, picking up my pink yarn, yarn over, pull through. So what I've got is those ends are woven in already, and I don't have to worry too much about them now. So another 2 stitches into this next stitch, so you're working under these top 2 loops of your previous stitch. I'll just carry those across still, picking up my pink yarn and yarn over, pull through. So now that green one's out of the way, I'm just going to push the pink one out of the way now. So I'm just going to hold that over to the right out of my way, doing my second stitch into that other one. So I've got 2 more double crochets, 2 more double crochets from the first row to work into, and I'm doing 2 into each. So yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through, going through under my stitch, picking up the loop, yarn over through 2, and now 2 more into this last stitch. So working in, yarn over, pull through, going in, pulling through, yarn over, pull through. Now I'm ready to do another slip stitch to finish off this row. So I'm going to just go into this first stitch of the row. So that's the chain. So I want to work into the first stitch of the row. So I'm going under those 2 loops. Just going to leave that sitting there. Snip off my yarn, get the pink out of the way, and going on to my next colour, which is going to be purple. Now in this next row, so we'll pick that up. So I'm just doing my join, and I've finished off the row there, and just give that a little tug on the back so that just tightens everything up there. Okay, so you can see you've got your joins come in, and we can snip off these extra bits in a little while. Or the other thing we can do is actually tuck them into our rainbow. So I'll show you that after. Okay, so here we are at the beginning of round 3. So I've joined in my purple yarn, and we're going to work an increase as we go around. So our first row we had 6 stitches, our second row we have 12. Now on our third row we're going to do 18. So the first stitch will have 1 single crochet in it, and the second one will have 2, and we'll repeat that: 1 single crochet, 2 single crochets. So we're gradually increasing as we go around. So again, we start the row with 1 chain. I want to carry these bits across at the back again, so we're weaving them in as we go. So working into this first stitch, and I'm just doing 1 single crochet in that first stitch. Now into the next stitch, so here we're going to work 2, and I'm working over those tail bits just to weave in as I'm going. So I end up I'm tidying up as I go along instead of having to go back and do it afterwards. So our next one is 1 single crochet in the next stitch, and then 2 into the next one after that. And I'm just weaving those ends across. You may notice I've changed my grip, so I'm actually using that knife grip. I often do change when I use a chunkier needle. It's just a chunkier hook. It's just a little bit more comfortable. I think sometimes you can see what I'm doing a little bit more too. Okay, so that's our increase. So the next one is just 1 single crochet into that next stitch. I'll pop those end bits out of the way, and then 2 is our increase in the next stitch. 1 and then 2 into that same stitch. Going around, 1 single crochet, and then 2 single crochet in the next stitch. 1 and 2. Repeating that, 1 single crochet, and then 2. 1 and 2. And once more, so 1 single crochet, and then 2 single crochets in that last stitch. So we've come to the end of our row. That's our chain from the start of the row. This is our first stitch here. That's the one I'm going to be working my slip stitch into. So just sliding the hook under there, and again snipping off our colour. And now I'm going to bring in some red. So hooking that up, making our join, just pull that through there, pull that tight there. So I've just got that nice and neat, doing that first chain. So on the increase for this one, we've got 6, 12, 18. Now we're going to do 24. So if we started with 6 chain, we're working in multiples of 6 as we increase. So this row has 24. You may find it a little bit fiddly doing this carry across method, but you will thank me for it down the track. So coming in under there, so 1 single crochet in that same stitch as the slip stitch, 1 single crochet into the next one, and then 2 single crochets in the next one for the increase. 1 and 2. I might pull that out of the way. I think that's a bit distracting there, isn't it? Okay, so we've done our increase. So now we do 2 singles, 1 single crochet, the next single crochet, and then we're going to do our increase. So 2 single crochets into the next stitch, 1 and 2. So we're just going to continue that around. So 1 single crochet, 1 single crochet, 2 single crochet in the next. So I've got yarn going everywhere. 1 and 2 is the increase. So just normal stitch, increase. So again, normal stitch, and increase, working 2 into the 1 stitch. And this is our last repeat around, and 1, 2. So we're finishing up there, missing that first chain, pushing through for our join with the slip stitch. So now I'm going to bring in some orange. So if we count back around there, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. Okay. Bringing in the orange. So just completing our slip stitch. So whenever you're joining in a new colour, it's a really good way to work in your new colour, because it just gets everything tidy and you haven't got an extra knot. The other way you could do it would be to actually tie off a knot at the end there. You can still weave in. So if you feel that you need that little bit of extra security, you can just do a little knot there and then continue on. But so using that technique, I don't tend to bring the knots in. Also with this particular project, it's not going to be such an issue. So increase this time is going to be up to 30 stitches. So we're going to do 1, 2, 3 single crochets and then our increase of 2 in the same stitch. So 1, 2, 3 and then 2. So starting with our chain just to come up to the level that we need, picking up our tails just to weave in. So 1 and 2 and 3, and then our increase in this next stitch. So we're doing 1 and 2. So we've got 5 stitches there. Now we're going to work on our next 5. So we have 1, 2, 3, and 2 into the next stitch for the increase. 1 and 2. So we've got 10 stitches there now. So a third of the way around, repeating 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2. So if I'm going a little bit fast, you can always go back, you can slow down the play. So there's that little icon in the bottom of the screen, the gear icon, and you can choose the playback to be at a slower speed, or perhaps you just want to zip ahead and see where I'm up to. So again, 1, 2, 3, and the increase, 2 in the same stitch, and once more, 1, 2, 3, and 2 into this last stitch there, 1, 2, and we're missing the chain going through that loop for our final. Okay, so see we've got a nice circle coming along there. That, with the chunky yarn, that would actually make a nice coaster, so you could just stay at that point. Just depends what you want to make. If you're using some cotton yarn, then you could make some face scrubbies. So anyway, I'm going to keep going with the colours. So I've got 2 more colours I want to bring in for our rainbow, and I'm going to work with yellow next. This is going to be another increase row. So this time we're going to have 36 stitches as we go around. So I'll start with my chain, and this time we're going to do 4 stitches just with the single crochet. 1, 2, 3, 4, and now the increase is coming up, and we have 2 into that same stitch. 1, 2, so that's our 6 stitches. Continuing on, so 4 single crochets, 1 single crochet in each of the next 4 stitches. Whoops, I'm just pulling that through, making a mess there. Get that out of the way. 2, 3, 4. Just check that. So that was where my increase is. 1, 2, 3, 4. Due for another increase. 1, 2. So again, 1 in the next stitch, 2 in the next stitch, 3 in the next stitch, 4 in the next stitch, and now we've got our increase, so 2 single crochet into that 5th stitch. So again, oh sorry, I knocked the knocked the table. 1, 2, 3, 4, and increase 2 single crochets into the next stitch. Once more, 1, 2, 3, 4. So what you want is that you're getting that gradual increase that's keeping your circle flat. So if you were doing too many or too little, then the edge starts to ripple up, and we don't want that. So I'm up to 4, so I want my increase, 1, 2, and our last lot, so we've got 4, 2, 3, 4, our final increase in that last stitch. Oops, I'll just split my yarn there. 2, and skipping that starting chain, our slip stitches going into that very first stitch. Snipping off my end, and I'm going to finish with a different yarn just because I wanted to have 7 colours, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and this is a little bit different yarn, but it's about the same ply, so it should work just to finish off our final round. So the final round is going to be 42 stitches all the way around. So we're up to the 7th round. 6/7 42 is one way that you can remember that. We started with 6 stitches and we're working in those multiples, so the 7th row is going to be 7 times 6, 42. I didn't realise years ago that maths would actually come in very handy for working with patterns and things. So if you maybe still at school and you're saying you're never going to use maths later down the track, oddly enough, even if you're artistic, you will still need to use a bit of maths. Okay, so we're doing single crochet in each of the next 5 stitches and then the increase. So we've got 1 in that same stitch as the slip stitch, 2, 3, 4, 5th one. So it can be a little bit fiddly just tucking those tails under, but it is worth it in the long run. The increase now is the 2 single crochets into the same stitch. So when you get to that tufty bit, just push it out of your way. Just hold it with your finger over on the right and get it out of your way. Okay, so that's our first lot of 7 stitches. So we have 5 lots of 1 single crochet in the next stitch. 3, 4, 5. Now increase 2 into this next stitch. 1, 2. This is our final row for today's project. So again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, increasing by doing 2 into the next stitch. So you can either crochet along with me. If you need to pause the tape, then you can pause and catch up, or you can maybe jump ahead if you've gone a bit faster than I have. 4, 5, this yarn just drags a little bit, and 2 into the next stitch for the increase, and repeating that again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 2 into the next stitch, and our last lot. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and our final increase, 2 into this last stitch. 1, 2. So skipping that starting chain and going into this first stitch, so doing our slip stitch there, and this time we're actually going to complete our slip stitch. Okay, so I've got that lovely circle there. Just adjust the camera a bit for you. Okay, so on the other side, so we can just snip these ends off because they are woven in, except for that first one. That first one I would use my needle to just weave it in. So all that messy weaving is done, and actually I'll get this hook and just weaving in this first one. So you're just going to catch under these loops. Just trying to do that so that you can see what I'm doing. Maybe go back the other way. So you just want to get it so that that's not going to unravel and ruin your work. That comes undone. Just pop that back through again. And snip off that end. So that's it can be a little bit fiddly doing that carrying across method, but as you can see, it saves having to weave in all of those individual ends. So the only one I needed to weave in was that one, and it would be this final one that needs to get woven in. Now that can stay as a circle, as it could be something for you to pop your hot plate onto, or using it as a coaster, a placemat. If you continue on, you could make yourself a placemat. So this circle method is very handy. It's something that's used in a lot of toy making. So if you're making a head, you would actually start with a circle, and then you start to work down from that point. So it's a very good technique to have learnt. Now what we're doing today is we're going to do our rainbows. So just going to get that back on my hook again, and I'm going to fold this in half at that point where my hook is. So I'm going to now work around this edge to join, and we could do that either using a slip stitch, or today I'm going to actually do a single crochet around there. So I'm going to do a chain just to extend out, and then I'm going to work through that first stitch there and work through the first stitch on the other side. So just through there. So I'm coming through those 2 stitches, picking up my yarn, whoops, to pull through. So I've got the 2 loops on my hook, and I'm just doing a single crochet again. So I'm just joining these 2 sides together by working through the stitch on the top piece and the stitch on the bottom piece. Same technique of doing a single crochet as we've been working with, but I'm going through the 2 layers of fabric. So again, from the top layer and the bottom layer, and just working a normal single crochet. So working through both layers and single crochet around. Now in this project, I actually could have left those straggly bits of yarn on the inside, because you're never ever going to see it, because we folded the fabric over. But I wanted to show you what I was doing there, so that if you were using a circle for something else, then you've already got that nice and neat. So I'm just working my way around this. Now I'm going to pop a little bit of stuffing into this just to make it a little bit puffy. So you could just leave it at that. It's already a little bit chunky just by folding it in half. You've got the double layer of fabric, but you can pop some stuffing in. So I'm using just this hobby filler stuff that I buy from Spotlight. So it's just an anti-allergen filler, like you would put into cushions, and you can make that as full as you like. So I've just put those couple of bits in. Some people use yarn scraps to fill. So that's something I tend to save my scraps. I've got an idea for something down the track that I'm going to do with them. I also quite like just looking at that in the jar. So they can come in handy, that you're not wasting any yarn at all. You have little jars and buckets of things everywhere. So now I've got that bit of filling in there. I'm just going to continue joining those two sides together. With a single crochet stitch. It's coming up to the last one, so again just going through those 2 layers of that last stitch, and we've got that joined together like a rainbow coloured taco. So you can just squish your fabric along a little bit. Now I'm going to make a little loop to hang this from. So I'm actually going to slip stitch back along this row. So this is just another technique that you can look at. So I'm not going to do a chain, I'm just going to slip stitch in each stitch. So what I want to do first is count how many stitches I have. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. So I'm going to work into the first 9 stitches. So slip stitch. So slip stitch is just going through, picking up your loop and then pulling through both those loops there. Or if you want to come through there and then you're just going to go through the one on the hook. Whichever way works easiest for you. So you're going through, picking up your loop, and then you're pulling that loop through the loop on your hook. So you're not doing an extra yarn over, or just pull straight through the 2 of them. So I've done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Oh, I think I missed a little bit at the beginning. Never mind. Okay, now I'm going to do 20 chains. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. It's a shame there's a join in the yarn just there. Never mind. 20. So I'm going to skip that stitch there and slip stitch into the next one. So I've missed a stitch, slip stitching into the next one. So I've got this little hanger on the top, and then I'm going to continue my slip stitches around. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that was, we had, that first one was the 9th one. So I've got 9 slip stitch, 20 chains, I've missed this stitch here, and I've got another 9 there. So I've got my hanger. Bit of a shame about that bit, but I'll fiddle with that after. Okay, so I'm just going to do a final slip stitch on the end, and that's where I'm going to then pull the hook through and cut it off. Now I could weave that end in and just leave the project as that, but I'm going to add some tassels. So to make tassels, I'm going to wind it around. I'm just going to use the business cards. It's just a business card size, and I'm going to wind around once, twice, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4. So 8. So I'm going to have 2 strands in each tassel on both sides. Cut that off. Slide the scissors in at the bottom of the card. Cut through. So I've got 8 strands of yarn there, and I'm going to put 2 in each tassel. Now you could do 3, you could do 4 strands. Just depends how chunky you want to make it. And where I'm going to work with my taco upside down, my rainbow. So I'm going to push through the layers of fabric there. I'm going to fold my yarn in half, hook those 2 pieces through, pull them through. Don't pull it all the way through, so you want it just enough that you can then wrap those tails around your hook, pull them through and knot them off. Okay, so we're going to be doing a few of those. So again, going into this next little bit of the watercolour, you've just got to push through a little bit there, folding your tassel in half, popping that over the hook and pulling through. Don't yank it all the way through, just far enough that you can wrap those tails over your hook and pull them through without losing everything, and then just pull that tight. Now I'm going to save the other 2 pieces for the other side. So I'm going to repeat with each of those colours to get my other tassels. So just going around business cards. So I'm going around lengthways on this one. On my other one, I went around that way, but I just want, because it's chunkier yarn, 2, 3, 4, and I'll only need 2 in each. Actually, I'll do 5, 6. I'm going to do 3 strands. So cut them. So I'll use 3 now and 3 for later. Something else you can do that makes it a little bit easier is if you go down a size in hook, it's a bit easier to push through. So that's just another tip if you think about it when you're doing your tassels, because this is a bit tight to push through. You just go down in size. So getting those over there, you do need to pull that tight down around your hook though when you've gone down in size. So each method has its advantages and disadvantages, so it's something you can work out for yourself what works best. And pulling through, I think I lost one then, didn't I? So let's just pick that up. As I said, there's advantages and disadvantages in both methods, so I'll need to go through that to pull that up. Not sure how much editing I may end up doing here. Oh, they've got to come through that one too. Maybe I'll stick to the bigger hook for this project. Okay, so I've got all those bits through, so I've got the 3 loops on the other side, and then the 6 strands of it doubled over going through there. Okay, so that's our yellow. Then I'm going to do the same thing with each colour. So orange is the next one. So again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times around. So for the chunky yarn, I'm going this long length of the business card, but with the finer yarn, I went the other way around. I'll just drop my hook, I think. Sorry, I will stick with this one just because I've dropped the other one. So I'm pushing through the bottom of the fold there, catching up these 3 pieces, so making sure that I'm pulling all those 3 pieces through. So I've got the 3 there, wrap around and pull all those ends through. It's a bit more successful than the yellow. So repeating with the red. Two, 3, 4, 5, 6. So you can pause this and catch up, or you can work along with me. Fast forward to the end. I will have a few more tips at the end, so perhaps I'll just keep this recording at the moment. But one more colour anyway. So we'll hook those red ones through, pulling them through, and around and pull through, and then pulling them tight. Okay, so I'm going to keep on doing that. So I'm going to do the same with the purple, the pink and the green, and then I'll be continuing on and doing the other side. So I'm going to do that and come back shortly. You can do the same. Okay, so here I am back again. So I've put all my tassels on. Just pull. That should be better. I've just got to put the tripod up a little bit. So I've attached all my tassels. So I just want to make sure that you have pulled each knot tightly. So you can just go along and do that. And then the next thing we're going to do is a little haircut. So in that middle green one, I'm not sure if I've got a feeling I didn't turn the camera on at that point. I did put all 6 strands into that middle green one, just to make the greens stand out a little bit. That first colour tends to get a bit lost otherwise. Okay, and then I'm going to do a haircut. So I've actually left that first bit there. Maybe I'll be tidy and weave that one down a little bit. So just that end strand of my, where we finished off our work, I'm just going to pull that down so we can include that in the tassel. Okay, so you want a nice pair of sharp scissors to do this, and then we're just going to give it all a little bit of a haircut and tidy up. So just going with the shorter pieces that are in there, and snip, snip, snip. There's times when my first job come in handy. I was a hairdresser my very first job. So I actually can eyeball cutting things fairly well. If you're not so confident, then you could just lay that down flatter and maybe put something as a guide that you snip along. Just make sure I'm on camera. So just doing that little haircut. That's the same length as the green. I'm staying on camera now. I've moved it. I've gone a bit wonky. And up to our orange. So always go a little bit cautious. You can always take a bit more off, but if you cut too short in the first place, then that's it. If you've ever had someone cut your fringe, then you'll know what I'm talking about. You want them to play cautious rather than take too much off. Okay, so I think that's looking pretty good. Missed a couple of bits there, so just snipping those couple of bits. Just a little bit more there. And on that side. So that's a haircut. Pop all those in the jar for out of the way. Okay, so there we have a lovely little hanging rainbow. Whoops, sorry. So that will show that up a little bit better. So that's just a nice fun little gift that you can do. It's the other one. So you can see that one's smaller. I don't know if I hold them both up together. You can see the difference in doing the chunky yarn. You've got me in the background there. So the 8-ply yarn is the top one and the chunky yarn in the bottom one. So they're just a fun little thing. If you know someone that's having a baby, that would be a nice gift, or just a nice something to brighten someone's day. I think they're pretty. So it's a simple rainbow. It's not having to go into any difficult shaping, and it's a nice squishy thing too. So if you did want to give particularly the chunky ones as a toy, then there's nothing dangerous in there. I perhaps would not put the hanger on it. So if you were going to give that to a baby, I would maybe not put that hanger on there. Maybe just have a single strand of something to tie it on with if you wanted it to tie, or don't have a hanger at all. Would be a nice snuggly thing for someone to play with. So I hope you've enjoyed that today, and a little bit of colour in our lives. Okay, bye for now.